Welcome back to Pokemon episode summaries. Today I'll be doing episode 396, the Ribbon Cup Caper. The episode begins with Ash and the gang aboard the SS St. Flower, which was a luxury ship, and they were on their way to Slateport City so that May could participate in the Grand Festival. As the ferry sailed across the ocean, with a wild Wingull flying over top, we actually see the interior of the ferry. Yeah, that's right, there was a whole interior, because it was basically like a huge cruise ship, not a basic-ass ferry. And May was especially excited now, not just about the Grand Festival, but about being on this ferry, and she enjoyed the ferry to the fullest by going into her reporter mode as she made a fake camera with her hands, as usual. And she told her pretend audience about a whole bunch of fancy shops and other areas on the ship, including artificial trees and stuff like that, and stated that it was like a city had moved onto a ship. May, seeing how excited the rest of the gang was to be on this cruise ship, reminded them that if it wasn't for her, then they wouldn't even be on this cruise ship, as they wouldn't have been heading back to Slateport for the Grand Festival. And apparently the entire reason why she was even permitted access to the ship was because she was heading for the Grand Festival, and stated that her friends should be grateful that she brought them along. In response, Ash, Brock, and Max thanked May and told her how proud they were of her for getting her 5th ribbon and making it to the Grand Festival, and wished her luck. Ash and the gang then decide to go to the ship's Pokémon Center, of course operated by Nurse Joy. So Ash and the gang greeted her, and May was about to ask to have her Pokemon healed in preparation for the Grand Festival, but she was interrupted as Brock tried to flirt with with Nurse Joy, so he had to get pulled away by Max. May finally was able to request that she wanted her Pokemon to be healed, leaving Nurse Joy to explain how the ship's Pokemon Center functioned a bit different than your average Pokemon Center. Since there were so many people on the ship at once, Nurse Joy couldn't tend to absolutely everybody's Pokemon, so if they just needed rest, she had actually just set up a mini lounge area for weak and tired Pokemon to relax, and also there was room for them to play and exercise too. And Nurse Joy asked if May wanted her Pokemon to rest or play first, and May decided that her Pokemon needed to rest first and then play. Explaining to Nurse Joy that she was entering the Grand Festival, so she wanted to send out her Pokemon to give them an opportunity to rest up for that, and also play to practice their techniques for the contest and shit like that. And knowing that there were other coordinators on the boat, obviously, she wanted to show off her Pokemon to any other coordinators who may have been watching their Pokemon play or rest. Nurse Joy confirmed that a lot of the trainers that had dropped off Pokemon to rest or play were in fact coordinators because they were on their way to Slateport, and added that there were so many fucking trainers and Pokemon on this bitch that the ship might fucking break down, or the Grand Festival might have to be delayed if people drowned because the ship fell apart or some shit. Hopefully she was just joking. With that, May sends out her Bulbasaur, Combustion, Beautyfly, Skitty, and Munchlax to rest and then play later. And they certainly go rest and play with a whole bunch of other Pokemon belonging to coordinators on the ship, such as another Skitty, a Pidgey, an Oddish, a Dugtrio, Bellsprout, Meryl, Trico, Mudkip, Wurmple, Lotad, Nuzleaf, Talo, Shroomish, Slackoth, Whismur, and Shelgon. Ash and the gang then say goodbye to May's Pokemon for now, and make their way to other parts around the ship to do some sightseeing since they wanted to make the most of this opportunity to be on this grand ship. While walking, they encountered Officer Jenny with her Growlithe. Of course, Brock flirted with her, and trying to give her some flowers that he just happened to find while walking, and Max dragged him away by the ear, as usual. While Max was doing this, Ash and May realized that it was pretty weird to see an Officer Jenny by a Pokemon Center on a goddamn cruise ship, so they asked what the fuck Officer Jenny was doing in the first place, and if there was some sort of trouble on the cruise ship, leading Officer Jenny to reveal that she's seen no actual crimes occur yet, but she was on the trail of Brody, an ex-member of Team Magma, who she had received reports of being on the ship, stating that aside from being a former member of Team Magma, he was also a notorious thief, period. Upon hearing the name Brody, Brock and Max soon reunite with Ash and May after Brock had been dragged away, and they reveal to Officer Jenny that they had heard of Brody before, and remind Ash and May of him, and they remember him as well. He was basically the Team Magma member who disguised himself as Millie, a new employee at the Weather Institute, and stole data from the Weather Institute about Kyogre and Groudon. Then we see a flashback of this, as we hear Ash and the gang reveal what they knew of Brody to Officer Jenny, which could be important, which was that he had a Ditto, and also he was a master of disguise, being able to disguise himself easily, reminding Jenny of how he disguised himself as a fucking scientist. Ash and the gang then asked why Brody was now a former member of Team Magma, leading Officer Jenny to explain that Team Magma and Team Aqua had officially been disbanded following the clash between Kyogre and Groudon, like because they, turned good and shit after that. Yay! Well, Ash and the gang couldn't celebrate about this for long, because even though Team Magma and Team Aqua were disbanded, that just meant that Brody himself had become more fierce, since Brody hadn't wanted to quit, so he just decided to continue criminal activity all on his own, becoming a master thief. Ash and the gang at first questioned why the fuck Brody would continue being a thief if his main goal of being with Team Magma was now done, although Jenny stated that some people just like being thieves, even if they didn't really have much of an end goal aside from just getting richer and shit like that, and warned Ash and the gang that because he was a master of disguise, like they said, he could be anyone that they meet, so they should watch out, and advised them to hide away, but Ash and the gang refused, saying that they wanted to help her find Brody and arrest him, because they dealt with Team Aqua and Team Magma before, they wanted to deal with anything related to it that was still left undealt with. Meanwhile, Team Rocket was nearby, also riding the cruise ship, disguised as cleaners for the ship, and they were listening in on Ash and the gang talking to Officer Jenny, having spotted them. And they overheard Officer Jenny just get a report from some of her other officers that apparently the reason why Brody had came to the ship was because he wanted to steal some jewelry of some kind. But they didn't really care about this. What they cared about was hearing that Team Magma and Team Aqua no longer existed. And Jesse and James realized that they must have just fucking quit, because they realized that they couldn't control Kyogre and Groudon, so they had no point to even exist anymore. Team Rocket also heard Officer Jenny let Ashley Gang search for Brody, stating that if they saw anything strange, they needed to report it to her immediately. And then they saw Brock try to flirt with Officer Jenny again, but Max once again pulled him away by the ear. Anyways, Team Rocket was very excited to hear that Team Aqua and Team Magma had disbanded. Before hearing this, they were initially just planning to do their basic ass plan of catching Pikachu as usual, but now, Jessie and Meowth got an idea, telling James that technically the reason why Team Magma and Team Aqua disbanded was because of them. Although James denied this, reminding Jessie and Meowth that they were just blasted off as usual. They didn't actually do jack shit. Although Jessie and Meowth just told James that they could lie that they were involved, and essentially take credit for the fact that Team Aqua and Team Magma had disbanded, and tell Giovanni this, hoping that Giovanni would be extremely happy with the news. Since with Team Magma and Team Aqua gone, Team Rocket could fill the power vacuum left behind in the Hoenn region, and Giovanni would therefore give Team Rocket promotions if they lied that they actually were involved in taking Team Aqua and Team Magma down. Meowth kind of still wanted to catch Pikachu, but Jessie put that to bed real quick and brought up how there was another thing they could take advantage of as well to impress Giovanni. They knew who Brody was, an ex-Team Magma member, and if he was planning to steal something, then they could one-up Brody and steal what he was going to steal instead to impress Giovanni and show that they were able to one-up even the remnants of Team Magma. And also, they could get something really rare in the process that Brody was going to steal. And it would also be nice because they could stick it to Officer Jenny if she wouldn't be able to catch them. And after all this, Team Rocket officially cheered and Lobfit popped out his Pokeball to agree with the plan. They were going to do everything in their power to one-up Brody and also lie to Giovanni about them being involved in stopping Team Magma and Team Aqua. While looking for Brody, May decided to lead the rest of the gang on a tour of the ship a little bit so that they could still make the most of their time on it while looking out for Brody. She proceeded to grab a brochure as she wondered where they should go first, and while looking in the brochure, she heard that the ship had an exhibition museum type of thing that had none other than the Golden Cup of the Grand Festival, the Ribbon Cup, which was the award that the top coordinator of the festival would win. The room was being heavily guarded by security, but they let Ash and the gang in, especially when they found out that May was a coordinator, and they got to all look at it in awe, admiring it, with May, of course, spotting it first. And she stated that she would win it no matter what, as she had a fantasy of herself already having won the Ribbon Cup. Being presented to her by Mr. Sukizo, Raul Contesta, and Nurse Joy and Vivian, and she also pictured her friends and her Pokemon standing by her. Suddenly, though, May's fantasy was interrupted as she heard a yell and turned around to see that the yell had come from a security guard who was chasing Munchlax, who had somehow managed to come into the room with the Ribbon Cup and seemed to be interested in doing something. Assuming that it wanted food, as usual, Ash and the gang try and intercept Munchlax, but before they could, Munchlax quickly gets on a chair by a table and steals a few cookies from the table, downing the entire goddamn plate. To make matters worse, Munchlax then bumps into the pedestal where the Ribbon Cup was held after getting up from the chair. Max then reminded the others of what he had done last episode, take a whole bunch of May's purple Pokeblocks, purple surprise, and put it inside of the Pokeblock case so that he could save them for Munchlax later. So, he had the Pokeblocks that Munchlax liked more than anything at his disposal. So, Max gave Munchlax one of the Pokeblocks, and it felt full immediately. However, Ash was the first one to discover that after Munchlax had run into the Ribbon Cup pedestal, it had done some damage, actually to the Ribbon Cup, as one of the handles was broken off. May started to scold Munchlax when one of the guards alerted Raul Contesta, one of the Pokemon contest judges, to the breakage, and Raul Contesta proceeded to inspect the damage. May takes full responsibility for her Munchlax breaking the cup, and she apologizes, and Mr. Contesta was actually happy to accept May's apology, noting that it was just an accident, and she didn't mean to destroy it. And he clarified that it could actually be fixed really easily. However, upon further examination of the Ribbon Cup, he notes that something was wrong, because the Ribbon Cup should never have been able to break so easily, because May explained to him how her Munchlax bashed into the pedestal, and that shouldn't have fucking broke the Ribbon Cup. So, Raul Contesta inspects the cup further, and he notices that the official seal of the contest committee was missing. Basically, the contest committee had to, have a stamp on it to mark it authentic and official, but that wasn't there. So, by extension, this made Contesta realize that, much to his shock, this Ribbon Cup was actually not the real Ribbon Cup, it was a fake one. Contesta then confirms that the cup was fake, as he looks on the inside, and it was completely, fucking hollow. That's not how the cup should have been. There should have been, some actual kind of, gold stuff inside, but there wasn't. Just then, as Contesta moved the cup, a little card fell out from the bottom of the cup, and Ash and the gang realized that it looked kind of like Brody's signature or some shit, and they figured that maybe Officer Jenny would be able to fully identify it, so they brought the card to Officer Jenny and explained the whole situation to her, and this made Officer Jenny worried, claiming that she placed security guards everywhere to stop the theft, even though she thought it was jewelry, she thought that all the security guards would be able to prevent a theft of anything in the museum area where the Ribbon Cup was kept. Meanwhile, as for Team Rocket, they were actually hiding inside of the museum's vent, and they were observing Raul Contesta and Ash and the gang talking to Officer Jenny and all that, and they were now out of their disguises, and they were now considering not only trying to, talk to Giovanni about how they stopped Team Magma and Team Aqua and trying to one-up Brody and all that, they were also talking about stealing the Ribbon Cup for themselves. They were a bit pissed off at first because, they wanted to show up Brody, and Brody had already stolen the Ribbon Cup, but they just realized that they could just steal the Ribbon Cup from Brody instead, as opposed to stealing it from the actual cruise ship museum. Anyways, Mr. Contesta then got up from the couch he was sitting on with Ash and the gang and revealed some bad news to May, which was that since the Ribbon Cup was stolen, they may have to cancel the Grand Festival, since they could no longer give out the award they needed to, even though Mr. Contesta obviously didn't want to cancel. May countered that the Grand Festival couldn't be cancelled because she and all the other coordinators worked so hard to get all the ribbons for the festival, and there was no way they could all let their hard work go to waste like that. So May suggests that they simply just make another ribbon cup, but Mr. Contesta sadly points out that there was no time to make another cup, so cancelling the Grand Festival was his only option. However, Officer Jenny declared that she would not let the contest be cancelled, and reminded Contesta that Brody must still be on the ship, since the theft just occurred recently, and there was no way he could have escaped with all the guards, and also the fact that they were in the middle of the goddamn ocean. So Officer Jenny promised to do her best to try and find Brody before they got to Slateport City for the Grand Festival to begin. Ash and the gang were motivated by what Jenny just said, as was Contesta, so with this newfound hope, Ash and the gang, Contesta, and Officer Jenny set out to find Brody to retrieve the Ribbon Cup, which they declared was Police Operation Ribbon Cup. Although, before they set off, Brock tries to flirt with Officer Jenny again, but Max stops him by dragging him away by the ear, as usual, and with that, it was time to actually begin. The first thing that Ash and the gang, Officer Jenny, and Contesta did was question the two guards at the museum entrance, because, they weren't supposed to let anyone in at all, even though they let Ash and the gang in, and so questioning them to see if they let anyone in would obviously help them track down a lead. The guards, however, state that they didn't remember letting any non-officials in, but Jenny clarified that even officials she needed to know about in this case, since they could be posers. So, Officer Jenny asks what officials entered the museum lately, leading one of the guards to admit that the other guard seemed a bit shady, as he wanted to go in and check out the Ribbon Cup. And then he suddenly left, saying he had something to take care of, but was in too much of a rush to say what. So the guard just assumed that the other guard just wanted to check out the Ribbon Cup before going on his lunch break, and then he went on his lunch break, and was just really hungry or some shit. Officer Jenny then asks the guard that was accused of going inside to the Ribbon Cup if they did in fact go on a lunch break, and the guard confirms this, although the guard that accused this guard first added that the other guard came back early from his lunch break for some reason, although the guard that was being accused of this denied this, saying he was at his lunch break all the time he was permitted. He did not come back early. This didn't really matter to the guard who accused the other guard of this, however, because he was still kind of convinced that this other guard could have stolen the Ribbon Cup, since he was the only one that was let into the room since before the theft took place. Although the guard who was being accused of the theft denied that he could have possibly committed the theft, as he didn't even remember going into the room at all, saying that he was at the cafeteria his entire goddamn lunch break. There's no way that he could have been let into the museum with the Ribbon Cup. Jenny knew that the guard was telling the truth, since she knew that Brody was the true culprit, so came to the conclusion that the guard that was being accused was actually basically cosplayed by Brody. Like, Brody had used that guard as a disguise to pretend that he was the real guard and steal the Ribbon Cup. As Jenny pictured Brody disguising himself as a guard in her mind, her theory was solidified in her mind. She knew that she was right, especially since the guards had not let anyone else into the Ribbon Cup room. Thus, Action Gang, Contesta, and Jenny, well, minus Contesta, because he had to go back and do some shit, I guess, maybe inform Tsukizo about what was going on, I don't fucking know. Anyways, they went to go investigate the cruise ship, trying to find Brody, still disguised as a security guard, looking in the gaming room and the mess hall, but they were both crammed with people, so there's no way they would ever be able to find one specific person, unless they went up to each individual person and saw them and questioned if they were Brody and all that. And Max and Brock pointed out that Brody could have already changed his disguise, being a master of disguise, into a different person anyways, so they would have no lead whatsoever. Ash and the gang started to panic, knowing that they had no leads, but Officer Jenny then got an idea, claiming they just needed to lure Brody with bait, and told Ash and the gang to trust her with her plan, since she was an experienced cop and she knew what she was doing, and stated that they would basically have to find some way to force Brody out of hiding, and proceeded to grab a normal Pokeball that she had in her pocket or some shit, and she started painting it gold, utilizing some gold spray paint, so they basically had their own golden Pokeball. So now, the next step was to put it on display somewhere that Brody would find it and take it. Ash and gang questioned what exactly Jenny's plan was, so Jenny explained that her plan was to lure Brody out by putting this golden Pokeball on display as an extremely valuable second-place prize in the Grand Festival, so that Brody would hear it was valuable and try and steal it. Therefore, if Jenny and Ash and the gang were guarding the Pokeball, then they could catch Brody when he tried to steal it and undisguise him. So, Officer Jenny found a place to put the golden Pokeball in the middle of the mess hall of the cruise ship, and Ash and the gang decided to have some lunch while going through with their part of the plan. Well, Ash did anyways, because Brock, Max, and May all split off to do their part of the plan elsewhere. But basically, Ash and the gang's job was to basically spread rumors about the golden Pokeball and kind of advertise it around, hoping that Brody would hear one of them talking about it and would therefore go to the golden Pokeball so Officer Jenny could catch him. So, Ash and Pikachu, while having lunch, talked with Ash telling Pikachu to go check out the golden Pokeball since it was worth a lot of money. And once he was done eating, he and Pikachu walked around the mess hall, and Ash simply loudly yelled, "Wow, I can't wait to see the brand new golden Pokeball. Can't you, Pikachu?" Just trying to be as obnoxious as possible to get as much attention, hopefully from Brody, as possible. As for Brock, he went over to a vending machine and got a drink and said aloud that he really needed to see that goddamn golden Pokeball right in front of some people. May and Max walked past the billiard tables, saying a whole bunch of facts about the golden Pokeball, such as how it was authentic, how it was the second prize to the Pokemon Grand Festival, all those lies. And later that night, Ash and the gang all reunited with Officer Jenny, hoping that they had spread the word enough to make Brody over here and have him steal the golden Pokeball, which they were now standing by. As for where Officer Jenny decided to put the golden Pokeball, she decided to put it in the museum, the same museum where the Ribbon Cup was held before Brody took it anyways. Just then, Ash and the gang and Officer Jenny think that they hear someone approaching, so they quickly hide and wait to catch the potential thief, Brody, hopefully, in the act. And eventually, the source of what they heard being two people, who were actually, unbeknownst to them, Team Rocket, disguised as bellhops looking to steal the Pokeball. Even though they found it odd that there were two people instead of just one, when there should have just been Brody. Ash and the gang and Officer Jenny immediately revealed themselves from where they were hiding behind a couch and accused Team Rocket of being Brody and one of his old Team Magma friends, and accused them of trying to steal the golden Pokeball. Team Rocket were disgusted to have been misidentified as Team Magma, so they take the opportunity to spread Team Rocket's influence by saying that Team Magma and Team Aqua had fully disbanded and were history, and now Team Rocket were going to take over, which made Ash and the gang realize that these people were actually just Team Rocket, and they confirmed this as they took off their disguises, revealing themselves, leading Ash and the gang to also realize that Team Rocket were on the cruise ship, and they must have overheard all the talking about the golden Pokeball, and they managed to get to it before Brody did. Yeah, that's right. I guess they still wanted to steal the Ribbon Cup from Brody, but they were like, oh, we might as well steal this as well. But Ash doesn't let Team Rocket steal anything, as he quickly has Team Rocket use Thunderbolt to send them flying out of the cruise ship window far into the ocean, blasting off, before Team Rocket could try and steal the golden Pokeball, and therefore ruin their plan with Brody. But regardless, Ash and the gang were really pissed off that they hadn't lured Brody yet. This Officer Jenny didn't seem to know who the fuck Team Rocket was, so May simply explained they were criminals, and were shocked she had to explain this to an Officer Jenny, when most of them knew Team Rocket, even the ones in Hoenn. But, anyways, before May could ask any more questions, Ash and the gang and Officer Jenny decided to just go back behind the couch and hide, waiting for Brody, hoping that he would eventually arrive. But before they could do this, they were interrupted as another person entered the museum, the captain of the cruise ship, and ominously warned Ash and the gang and Jenny that there was some bullshit going down at the Pokemon Center on the cruise ship, adding that Brody had been identified and he was attacking the center and trying to steal all the Pokemon there. May barely even had to think before immediately deciding to run over to the Pokemon Center, only having a brief thought, realizing that all of her Pokemon were at the center and could have been getting captured. So, with that, Ash and the gang and Officer Jenny hurried over to the Pokemon Center, as fast as they could, leaving the captain alone, right by the golden Pokeball, smirking with happiness. Damn, I wonder who this guy was. He's probably fucking Brody. Anyways, Ash and the gang and Officer Jenny were walking down the stairs into another hallway that led to the Pokemon Center, when they suddenly stopped in their tracks, shocked very much so to see the captain again, this time the real one, because the other one was Brody. And this real captain happened to be standing right in front of the Pokemon Center, so he told Ash and the gang and Officer Jenny that it was closed. Although, Ash and the gang and Jenny, with Max being the one to mostly explain, stated that the captain himself had told them that Brody was at the Pokemon Center attacking it and stealing the Pokemon there. But, of course, the captain denies this, saying that the Pokemon Center was being heavily guarded from everywhere, and they haven't let anyone in. They haven't even had anyone try. And the captain knew this for a fact, because he just came from the Pokemon Center, and everything was fine there. This led Ash and the gang and Officer Jenny to finally realize the truth, being that they were led on a wild goose chase by Brody, who was disguised as the captain. And knowing this now, Ash and the gang and Officer Jenny turned around and went back up the stairs to the room with the golden Pokeball in it, determined to face Brody. Sure enough, Brody, disguised as the fake captain, was about to steal the Pokeball when Ash and the gang and Jenny showed up and confronted him, with Jenny ordering him to stop and reveal his disguise. Brody stated that he remembered Ash and the gang from the Weather Institute, and he acknowledged how quick they were and how persistent they were, stating he honestly admired this, and he did as Officer Jenny asked, taking off his disguise, revealing himself. Officer Jenny then wastes no time informing Brody that he was now under arrest, but Brody countered that he was not letting himself get caught this time, and stated that he would never get caught, just like how he didn't get caught at the Weather Institute either. And he proceeded to send out his Golbat and how to use haze, which temporarily blinded Ash and the gang and Officer Jenny, and allowed Brody to get away in the smoke, stealing the golden Pokeball. And of course, when the smoke cleared, Officer Jenny realized that Brody was gone, and he had taken the golden Pokeball. Obviously, Ash and the gang and Jenny didn't really care about the Pokeball being stolen, because it was a fake one anyway, at least the gold part. But Ash and the gang were just really concerned that he escaped, period. Because they knew that they couldn't fool Brody the same way again. Like, they couldn't be like, ooh, there's another first place prize that's a silver Pokeball. Like, no, they couldn't do that. Although, Officer Jenny was only mildly annoyed that Brody escaped, because she claimed that, as an expert cop, she never came unprepared, and she actually put a tracker device on the Pokeball, specifically inside it. Basically, the tracker was able to track Brody's movement, and Officer Jenny then pulled out her radar detector, and using this device, she could pick up the Pokeball's movement that it was receiving, and basically track it like that. So, all Ash and the gang and Jenny had to do was follow the radar detector, and they would be able to keep track of Brody and the Pokeball, leading Ash and the gang to commend Jenny for her smarts. As Ash and the gang and Jenny follow the tracking device, they are eventually led to the mess hall, where a innocent-looking lady was eating alone at a table. The lady instantly asked if there was something wrong, and why the fuck she was having the tracker pointed at her, leading Officer Jenny to reveal that she knew that this lady was actually Brody in disguise, because, you know, this is where the tracker had led them. Boldly, Brody admitted that he was actually Brody, not an innocent-looking lady, and he immediately runs off, dropping his costume along the way, changing into something different that Ash and the gang weren't able to see, since he changed so quickly. Ash and the gang give chase to Brody, but he disappears into the crowd, and Officer Jenny then finds yet another piece of clothing, followed by a few others on the ground, indicating that Brody must have been rapidly changing to make sure he wasn't caught. But what Brody didn't know was that his disguises didn't fucking matter, because Officer Jenny still had the tracker, so long as Brody still had the Pokeball, he could be tracked very easily. So, Ash and the gang and Jenny leave the clothes on the floor and proceed to continue following the tracker, and eventually, when they round a corner, the tracker leads them into the mess hall's kitchen. Ash and the gang thought they'd easily be able to recognize Brody at first, since the room was extremely small, but there were so many cooks in the kitchen, so it was impossible to find out which one could possibly be disguised as Brody, because, you know, they could just, like, look for someone who looked exactly like another cook in the kitchen, and obviously one of them would actually be Brody in disguise. Anyways, while Ash and the gang and Nurse Joy were busy trying to find someone suspicious who could be Brody, Ash and the gang and Officer Jenny then saw one cook come to the head chef to have him taste his food. The chef does, and compliments his food, and then leaves the room. However, the same chef immediately enters the room through another door. So, quite obviously, Ash and the gang and Officer Jenny came to the conclusion that the head chef must have actually been Brody in disguise, or at least one of them, the first one they saw. So, as Jenny spotted that the tracker on her radar was moving, indicating that Brody was on the move, Jenny and Ash and the gang gave chase again out of the mess hall kitchen and down some stairs. Ash and the gang and Officer Jenny then came to the conclusion, though, that Brody managed to figure out how he was being tracked by Officer Jenny, as he abandoned the golden Pokeball, leaving it beneath the staircase, and Ash soon found the Pokeball and went to go examine it carefully to see if Brody had laid a trap or something, and Ash and the gang and Officer Jenny saw that Brody had in fact laid the Pokeball down, not only to avoid being tracked, but also as a little distraction for Ash and the gang, so he could get away, as when Ash went to examine the golden Pokeball, it exploded with confetti coming out, and another card with Brody's signature on it. Now that they didn't have a way to track Brody, Ash and the gang and Officer Jenny tried to think of where Brody could be escaping to, as Officer Jenny stated that he had to be found quick, because he was very fast, and therefore he could get away fast. Upon hearing the word fast, Max remembered how, back at the Weather Institute, Brody had went to the top of the tower and activated his jetpack to fly away. So, Max came to the conclusion that Brody would want to go and escape with his jetpack now as well, and in order to do that, he would have to have access to the sky without breaking through the roof. So, this led Max to speculate that Brody was probably heading up to the deck of the cruise ship, so he could take off. With that, and the knowledge that if Brody got away this time, he could steal the ribbon cup, Ash and the gang and Officer Jenny ran up to the deck as soon as possible, although Officer Jenny seemed to be more determined, as she managed to run ahead. So, by the time Ash and the gang caught up to her on the deck, after they had searched around a bit, they actually found two Officer Jennys. Ash and the gang obviously knew that one of them was Brody, and one of them was actually Officer Jenny, but they couldn't figure out which one was which, especially since both of them were accusing each other of being Brody, and themselves being the real one. So Ash, May, and Max were left confused, although Brock was happy at the fact that he could finally do something this episode instead of just tag along, since he could totally tell which one was real. He had a great strategy. Basically, since he was the Officer Jenny and Nurse Joy, and just woman simp in general, like the fucking ultimate simp, he could use his simping abilities to tell which Officer Jenny was real and which one was actually Brody, because his simping abilities only worked for women, because Brock wasn't canonically gay. And we knew that this tactic would work, because it worked the last time they encountered Brody at the Weather Institute, because I remember when Brock had no romantic feelings towards Millie, and that was because Millie was actually Brody in disguise, and then when the real Millie arrived, he had romantic feelings for her. Yeah, it was that situation again. So, basically, Brock started talking to the Officer Jenny on the left, developing hearts in his eyes, but these hearts quickly faded, and he literally felt himself being forcibly pulled towards the other Officer Jenny, the one on the right, and this made him realize that the one on the right had to be the real Officer Jenny, since he was being pulled towards the real women. To further prove Brock's assumption, he quickly examines both Officer Jennys, quote-unquote, again, and while speaking to the one on the left, he was able to sense an enemy, Brody, and while speaking to the one on the right, he was able to sense a woman who he had a crush on and wanted to spend the rest of his life with. Alright, I see you, Brock, getting that little flirt in, but anyways, Ash and May were impressed that Brock's simping abilities actually were useful for once, and Max was too, but he felt contractually obligated to drag Brock away for simping by the ear, but before he could, he then got startled, as Brody knew that his disguise had been unveiled, so he just decided to take off his disguise, revealing himself, leading Officer Jenny to come up to Brody and demand the ribbon cut back, and Ash and the gang demanded the ribbon cup back as well. Brody simply unveiled the ribbon cup, admitting that yes, he did have it, and quickly examined it further. And apparently he came to the conclusion that the gold didn't actually look as good as he thought it did, so he thought that it wasn't made out of pure gold or some shit, and he also figured that everyone already knew that it was just a prize for a contest, and it wasn't actually like super rare or mysterious or anything, so he decided that he didn't need the ribbon cup anymore, and tossed it back to Officer Jenny. But before Officer Jenny could catch the tossed ribbon cup, it was snagged in midair by none other than Team Rocket in their Meowth balloon, who used a rope to pull it up. Team Rocket then do their motto, and during so, they put on some ship worker disguises, like people that would usually clean the deck and all that, and Wobbuffet and Chimecho come out to join the motto as well. And Team Rocket proceed to brag about how they had the ribbon cup now, and all that shit. Jenny demands that they give the ribbon cup back, yeah. And Brody got bored by all this shit, and simply just laughed at how ridiculous Team Rocket's motto was, and while Team Rocket was bragging about stealing the ribbon cup and all that, he took the opportunity to fly away using his jetpack, leaving Jenny frustrated that Brody escaped again before she could arrest him. Ash and the gang told Jenny to look on the bright side, though. At least Brody didn't have the ribbon cup anymore, and Team Rocket would be way easier to deal with than him. Officer Jenny agreed, and declared that she didn't plan on letting all the thieves get away, referring to Team Rocket, obviously, and immediately attacked Team Rocket by telling her Growlithe to use Flamethrower on them, as she sent out her Growlithe, although Jessie sent out her Seviper, who proceeded to dodge the Flamethrower, and then use a Poison Tail on Growlithe, knocking it back before it could attack anyone else with Flamethrower. Ash then stepped in, however, to help out Officer Jenny, and had Pikachu use Thunderbolt on Seviper to knock it back for a bit, leading James to send out his Cacnea, who hugged him first, of course, but eventually used Needle Arm, while Seviper recovered and used Poison Tail again. However, before these attacks could land, Growlithe used another Flamethrower, and Pikachu used a Thunderbolt to knock Cacnea and Seviper back into the Meowth balloon, and then Pikachu used Thunderbolt to send Team Rocket blasting off, and it also caused them to drop the ribbon cup, which Officer Jenny was able to catch. With the ribbon cup now saved, Ash and the gang and Jenny met up with Raul Contesta, and they put the ribbon cup back where it belonged on the pedestal, now putting an extra layer of protective glass around it to make it extra safe. Raul Contesta and Officer Jenny then thanked Ash and the gang for all their help, and Raul Contesta officially announced that the Grand Festival was no longer cancelled because of Ash and the gang, and knowing that May was a coordinator, having recognized her from all her performances, Raul Contesta told May that she'd better be competing, and May confirmed this. The episode then ends with Ash and the gang deciding to relax on the deck of the cruise ship for a little while, and eventually they see Slateport City in the distance. And by evening, they had made it. So, as the cruise ship pulled into Slateport City, May hyped herself up, telling her how confident she was to win the Grand Festival, and assured herself that after all her training, she was prepared to shine brighter than ever and show the audience what she was made of.